The Red Sox returned to action on this weekend of the first series after the All-Star break, and it did not go so well.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moments sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on right now is Blue Nile's anniversary sale. So you can save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry and 25% on engagement ring settings. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece at BlueNile.com today. Thank you for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, NESN's Lauren Campbell, alongside, as always, my co-host, Massachusetts Pirates team insider Jake Ignaszewski. And the Mass Pirates, their season came to a heartbreaking end, and not even the Red Sox could cheer Jake up this weekend. No. The Red Sox did return to action the first series after their All-Star break against the Toronto Blue Jays, and it started off very, very bad. They lost 28-5 on Friday. They lost 8-14. No, they lost 4-1. I am getting all my dates mixed up. 4-1 on Sunday. And as we are recording, they are losing 8-4 in the bottom of the seventh. So not showing so much signs of life, not showing a lot of signs of good baseball. And before we get into this, I will preface this by saying I know the Red Sox are injured right now. There are a lot of players on the IL, a lot of pitchers, a lot of the core players that we thought would be really helpful for this team. We're probably not going to see Kike Hernandez again this season. If we do, it's going to be later next month. Just very unfortunate everything for the Red Sox. So on Friday, they lost, like I said, 28-5. Very ugly start to the second half of the season. With their loss Saturday, that solidified another series loss to another AL East team. It's July 24th as we're recording this, and they cannot win against their division. The 28 runs given up by the Red Sox to the Blue Jays were the most runs given up in Red Sox franchise history. That surpassed the 27 that Cleveland scored all the way back in 1923. And the most embarrassing part to this game was the inside the park grand slam given up by the Red Sox. And Jarren Duran lost the ball in the lights. Totally fine. It happens. Those lights are very bright. You lose the ball, whatever. What pissed me off is that he turned around and just stared at the ball. Like just stared at it. He didn't run after it. We know that man has wheels, so we know he's speedy and can get to it. But he just watched the ball while Alex Verdugo hustled over to it, got the ball in. But by the time it was just too late. And my issue lies with not that Jarren Duran lost the ball, but that Jarren Duran showed zero hustle and then flipped off the crowd after the play. Like they were the ones who were the issue there. You didn't hustle after the ball. So, I mean, Jake, it was the whole game was a mess. But I think that was the biggest takeaway from the game was that there was no hustle there from Duran.
No hustle whatsoever. And his excuse for it was maybe I'll hustle more next time. And, and he also said, I didn't want to get in the way. I felt like I might collide with Alex Verdugo coming to get the ball. No, come on. Show the fans or try to make an attempt to actually go and fix your mistake. Like I understand losing in the sunlight happens all the time. And he really sort of explained, it's the scariest and most hopeless feeling that you can ever have. But at the same time, you got to show that hustle, especially when you're really fighting for a starting place in this Red Sox depth chart. And, it was nice to see him start to figure things out at the start of his most recent appearance with the Red Sox. But he just has really seen like a massive dip we saw right before the All-Star break happened. And now this just hurts him even more. But you brought up the Mass Pirates losing on Friday, and it was funny because throughout that game, I had a few people say to me, because I was really upset about the loss, obviously, and they're like, well, don't look at the Red Sox score. I saw it. I saw the 28. I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
Did not make me too happy, especially to see Nathan Eovaldi, our essential ace right now, allowing 9 runs in 2 innings.
Yeah, it was just ugly. A very, very ugly game. The Red Sox were playing very sloppy defense, and it was just mind-boggling that Jarren Duran after the game will say, well, until you lose the ball in the twilight, I don't know what to tell you. Didn't want to collide with Alex Verdugo. And I understand like not wanting to collide, but Alex Verdugo wasn't even in the same area code at the time when Duran turned around to the ball. The ball was right there. Jarren Duran needed to show some sort of hustle, and he ended up getting booed in Saturday's game, which I think it is justifiable by his lack of hustle, the lack of accountability. And like you said, he's fighting for a spot here on this depth chart because he showed a lot of promise and there's tons of hype around him. But at this point, I think it's just he's fast. What else can we say about Jarren Duran other than he's fast? He has come up clutch at times. He's shown a lot of his potential. He's flashed that potential. But then you have a game like this. And I know when you're down, whatever, and it's been a really tough few weeks for the Red Sox, I know it's frustrating. I get that. But you can't give up on a play because you're looking at somebody running over from a position they do not play. Alex Verdugo, that's not Alex Verdugo's play to make. It's Jarren Duran's play to make. And it was just, I did not enjoy at all the lack of accountability and anything that came after it. Like you said, Nato Eovaldi gave up 9 earned runs on 8 hits in 2 2/3 innings. Only gave up 2 walks, which is probably the best part about that line, and 3 strikeouts. Very discouraging to see. And I know the Blue Jays are a good team, but Nate Eovaldi's supposed to be your ace. Chris Sale is out for an undetermined amount of time after breaking his pinky, which is just exactly how the Red Sox season has been going the last few weeks. But when you look at the starting pitching or the pitching as a whole, and we have exhausted ourselves talking about this pitching because it's just been really, really bad. Austin Davis gave up 5 earned runs. Caleb Ort gave up 8 earned runs. Darwinzon Hernandez gave up 4 earned runs in the loss on Friday. And this comes after a 13-2 loss and a 14-1 loss to the Yankees prior to the All-Star break. That's 55 runs given up through those 3 games. That's just unacceptable for a team that's supposed to be much better than this. And like I mentioned in the very beginning, I know this team's hurt. I know this team is tired and battered. Other teams have injuries. Other teams have played just as much baseball as they have. And it's just, I do not know what the problem is. And you look at the pitching, which has been an issue all season, but now it's just, you look at Jarren Duran, that play, there is no hustle and it's just like they forgot how to play baseball. It's like the rest through these first 3 games since the All-Star break, I just think the Red Sox just look lost. And I don't think that has to do with the injuries. I just think they don't know how to play baseball anymore.
The energy is massively deflated. We saw them playing with that swagger, with that energy that we talked about that they needed back in June, when they had this great winning stretch, when we got really excited about what we could see about this current Red Sox team. And, obviously we saw right before the All-Star break an awful few games against the Yankees. And, Alex Cora brought up that this is a great reset going into the All-Star break. But it just looks like that they picked up right where they left off after the All-Star break. And, one last point with the Jarren Duran thing, and then we can move on about it. But he really needs to figure out, if he wants to play in Boston, he needs to figure out how to deal with the Boston media, because I understand that he's dealt with the Worcester media, which you and I have both been there. There's 2 or 3 people that go and interview you after the game. So and they're going to ask you questions about, how you played on the field and that sort of stuff, but they're not going to be as straightforward or maybe as sarcastic or to the point as maybe you'll hear in the major leagues dealing with the Boston media. And he's probably not used to getting ripped as much as he has right now. And, he had that a little bit last season, but he's a 25-year-old. We're not talking about a 22, 23-year-old. He needs to mature if he wants to play in Boston sports. But really looking at the pitching, like you mentioned, just very unfortunate to see, a guy like Austin Davis, who has pitched really well throughout this season, allow 5 earned runs. Also, you can't really be too surprised about what you saw from Caleb Ort and Darwinzon Hernandez. Ort's a guy who, this is his first stint in the majors. He was a Rule 5 draft pick for the Red Sox in the minor leagues last year from the Yankees. And obviously all of us are hoping that a guy from the Yankees that we stole from him can be like a Garrett Whitlock 2.0, and we can laugh in the Yankees fans' faces, but you can't really be too hard on a guy going against one of the best lineups in baseball in the Toronto Blue Jays. And then Darwinson Hernandez, he's a guy who started in Worcester trying to figure things out. We saw him be a little bit better through this stint with the Red Sox, but I mean, especially with how well the Blue Jays bats were rolling that day, it seemed like it didn't matter who you threw out there; they just weren't going to pitch well.
Yeah, the Blue Jays just came out ready to hit and ready to score runs, and that they did. And it was just a very ugly game. And the pitchers, there's a lot of injuries right now. So a lot of these guys shouldn't be in Boston right now. They just do not have a choice. They do have a choice because the trade deadline is like almost a week away, just over a week away, and they need to do something. And we will talk about that. We still have unfortunately, another loss to talk about in our second segment of the Locked On Red Sox podcast. And the Red Sox are not shining right now at all. They're very, very dull. But what is not dull is jewelry from Blue Nile. And Jake is going to tell you all about that.
So Blue Nile is the #1 place to celebrate all your life's special moments, whether it's with an engagement piece or whether it's with some fine jewelry, necklaces, bracelets, earrings. Blue Nile is the perfect place to make that happen. And they also have simple online tools that will let you choose the diamond shape, size, and even clarity and setting style for your piece of jewelry, so that every single piece is one of a kind. And especially if you're looking to make life special moments, whether it's an engagement or whether it's just a nice gift for your loved one, Blue Nile also has 24/7 jewelry experts that you can ask questions to, try and make this fine jewelry exactly how you want it to look. So then you're able to make some special moments with people that you really care about. So make your moments sparkle with jewelry from Blue Nile. And going on now is Blue Nile's anniversary sale. So save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured shipped free and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today.
So on Saturday, while the loss wasn't as bad as my grandmother said, at least the Blue Jays didn't score as many runs as they did Friday. The Red Sox still lost 4-1, and Bobby Dahlbeck did hit a home run in the game. So that was good to see. Jackie Bradley Jr. also has been good this weekend, but when you have the Bobby Dahlbecks and the JBJs being your best players, that's really not a good sign. I mean, they're supposed to be fine, but when they are your best players in a weekend that you are just getting embarrassed, it's just adds to the ugliness that was this weekend. But in Saturday's game, like I said, they lost 4-1. There was a little dust up between Alek Manoah and Franchy Cordero and Bobby Dahlbeck. So Manoah struck out Franchy Cordero, and he seemed to have said something to himself on the mound, kind of like when Nick Pivetta did that, and it caused an almost benches clearing, whatever. Cordero stared in his direction. Manoah saw Cordero staring at him, and he told Cordero to sit the beep down. Use your imagination. We keep it clean here on Locked On Red Sox. And it continued when Bobby Dahlbeck, who homered off Manoah earlier in the game in the second inning, struck out on three fastballs, and that ended the inning. Manoah looked toward Dahlbeck, the Red Sox dugout. He pounded his chest with his glove. He flexed a little bit, and just some friendly trash talk. And then he headed back to the Blue Jays dugout. Manoah turned back to Dahlbeck and said, "Sit down, beep." Again, use your imagination or just look up on Twitter. Blue Jays teammates had to basically usher Manoah back to the dugout before things escalated. And Manoah was joking about the incident afterward. He told reporters, "I think I told Dahlbeck, let's go get some BioSteel." And Manoah just signed an endorsement deal with BioSteel. And Dahlbeck said, "Nah, I'm going to go get some Gatorade." So I was like, "No, you need to go sit down. I'm going to get BioSteel." And I thought that was a funny way to deal with that, because Manoah was a very emotional guy. And I think that I'm fine with trash talk, and especially like the Red Sox are just depleted right now. So maybe like whatever, like don't kick them while I'm down, but I'm also like, it's harmless, it's fun, and the game was still within reach during those times. And Dahlbeck, who homered after or before, you're excited to get him out. And I think from that whole little dust up, Alex Cora after the game said nobody Somebody's going to feel sorry for us. Manoah showed it today, right? In the 6th inning, he was looking in the dugout, screaming at us. And yeah, this is where we're at. And I think that quote stuck with me where he's like, this is where we're at, where we're kind of the laughingstock of MLB right now. Teams are just beating up on us in every way they can, and it's getting to our guys' head. And it is an emotional game. They are division rivals. The Blue Jays are a very, very good team. And it's just when Alex Cora was like, this is where we're at right now, I was like, yeah, this is exactly where they're at right now. And it's not a fun place to be.
I mean, especially where they are in the AL East right now. I mean, the Orioles are even playing better baseball than them, and we can't even really make that joke anymore because the Orioles are a legit team now, and it's something where with Alex Manoah, some fans like him, some don't. I love the energy. He's a guy who I really gained a lot of respect from what I heard in the All-Star game with him mic'd up. Like just great energy, great personality. It's what is best for baseball. In those types of moments, that's what makes the game exciting. That's what makes, the fans go after each other. Blue Jays and Red Sox fans. Now there's a little bit of a rivalry. We've obviously seen that through the long history with the Red Sox and Yankees. We've seen that multiple times with the Rays. And now that the Blue Jays are big contenders and, they're going back and forth with the Sox in the standings, there's going to be a lot of high energy sort of trash talk that we're going to see throughout the rest of this season. So I love it. And it's good that, I think Dalbec and Cordero got into it with him. Some people could say, just put your head down and play the game. But at the same time, they got to defend themselves. They got to put a little bit of a spark into this Red Sox team as well, too. Unfortunately, that didn't bode well for the Sox for the rest of the game because they only scored 1 run. But I mean, when you're a guy like Alex Manoah who struck out 7, only allowed 1 earned run over 6 innings, I mean, you're allowed to be a little bit cocky and talk a little bit of trash. So I thought it was interesting how it all played out at the end. But I like the joke that he made about the Gatorade thing.
Yeah, and I think that's the perfect way to kind of deal with that because I don't believe there's any bad blood between these teams. I don't think these teams hate each other like the Red Sox and Yankees do. Right. I think that it's very friendly banter, and I think that it's funny. I mean, we saw it in was it 2018 when Ryan Brazier told Gary Sanchez to get back in the box after and I can't remember if it was the playoffs or if it was a big game. I can't remember, but I just remember Ryan Brazier telling Gary Sanchez to get back in the box, and then he struck him out, and it was just like a funny moment there. But this is different because those teams don't hate each other. Maybe they're going to start hating each other, and maybe this will become another rivalry within the AL East, which I think is going to be really good for baseball and AL East fans. But the Red Sox, it's different when they're playing bad baseball. They're making defensive miscues left and right. Sunday's game started with Xander Bogaerts making an error at shortstop. Like, this is just how the weekend is going. They're not playing good baseball, and it's not even that they're not hitting the ball. They're not even fielding well. We saw that Friday, saw it Saturday, we saw it Sunday, and it's just I don't know. Well, I know what needs to be done. I mean, the trade deadline is right here. But I don't know when the Red Sox are beaten down so badly on the verge of getting swept again. It's defeating. I don't know about you, Jake. I miss the June Red Sox because they were winning games. They were playing good baseball. Yes, they were healthy then. And I'm not saying this team is terrible just because of those injuries. And I know that when they get healthy again, they're not automatically going to be the June Red Sox, but there needs to be something done. Like, they look like a team that was told, we're not doing anything at the deadline, or we're blowing everything up at the deadline, and we're just going to have to call this season a wash because no one looks inspired to play right now.
No. Yeah, that's what came to mind too. There's just no passion out there whatsoever. I actually tweeted before we started recording. I feel like I'm watching the 2020 Red Sox.
Yeah.
Like, I just went into today and you could see it all over Twitter. Everybody was just laughing at the lineup. Like, it's just kind of embarrassing because I feel like it's spring training. I don't feel like we're at the end of July. And it stinks because, I should be excited about seeing the Red Sox top pitching prospect on the mound, but he's not ready. And, he showed you that in his 3 starts that he's made. And it's unfortunate that, there's guys like Brian Bayo who are being put in these situations to essentially fail because you're going against one of the best hitting teams in the league. And, he just needs more time to develop. He's a 23-year-old pitcher who, really just came up from Double-A earlier this season. So he's essentially an unfinished product who still needs to develop. And, you look at guys like Jeter Downs too, he still needs time in Worcester. But I think, with these injuries, we've talked about this with, Josh Winkowski and same with Cutter Crawford. This is perfect opportunities for these guys to audition for a spot next season. But at the same time, now that you're seeing what has happened over this last week or so, and, with the trade deadline coming up and you're on the verge of being 500 or under 500 close, if you continue these losses, there's going to be a lot of hard decisions that are going to have to be made in the next 2 weeks.
There are. And, you mentioned Brian Bayo, and I don't think there's any reason to panic about what's going on with him. I just think you said it best. He's not ready to be an MLB, and now he's kind of forced to be here because of Chris Sale's freak injury. And if Chris Sale stayed healthy, he probably wouldn't be here right now. But they don't really have a choice, and it goes back to Chaim Bloom not getting proper help when they needed it, when it was right there in front of you. You do not have this proper help. Yes, he's done a great job building the farm system, but these guys are not ready yet. And it's, again, just all goes back to not getting proper help. Brian Bayo is getting left out to dry. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be a wonderful pitcher in MLB when he's ready. I think Jeter Downs will be a fine player when he's ready. And it's always, they're just being forced up here. I don't want their confidence to get diminished, or even their careers to get ruined. And I'm not a betting person, but if I was, I would not be betting on the Red Sox to win the World Series. But if you are feeling like you want to do that, you can head over to betonline.net because it is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs, find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you all covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today, which if you're a Red Sox fan, you probably don't want to. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. So in our final segment of the Locked On Red Sox podcast, with the trade deadline approaching and Chris Sale's injury, the way the team has played these last 3 games, do you think this kind of changes the Red Sox approach as August 2nd approaches?
I think you got to look at the guys who are going to be free agents next year outside of Xander Bogaerts and Sale. I think, I mean, outside of, I like Christian Vasquez on this team next season too. I think if you sign Vasquez to a 2 or 3 year deal, I would not be upset about that. Because realistically, as much as I respect Connor Wong, Cole Cottom, Nathan Hickey, all those guys, they're all great people. I don't know if they're the future catcher for the Red Sox. I don't know if they're going to be great MLB players next season. I just don't see that happening. And I don't want to have a rental or a guy who, you don't trust to be the future of your catching position back there. And, especially with how Christian Vasquez knows these pitchers, he knows this team. He's the longest tenured Red Sox player on this current roster. He's been the system since, I believe, like 2014. And so it's something where, you look at Evaldi, you look at Kike Hernandez, even though he doesn't have any trade value right now whatsoever, which is unfortunate because if you tried to trade him last season, at the end of last season, you would have gotten a boatload for him. Yep. But if you look at, all these different guys who are going to be free agents, you really got to figure out a way to get some sort of value for them and start planning for next year. This is not the Red Sox season, in my opinion. When Nathan Evaldi goes out there and he's essentially your ace of this team, and he's the guy who's going to be going in game 1 of any playoff series, and he allows 9 earned runs to the team who most likely will be playing in the playoffs in the Toronto Blue Jays, there's really no hope for this team at the moment. And I understand he just came back from an injury. There's all these different things. They have 14 guys on the injured list. But at the same time, with the trade deadline coming up, I don't see that buying is the best way to go.
Yeah, if you asked me this 6 weeks ago, I probably would have sung a different tune, that they only need a little bit of help here and there. I think that they should be sellers. I think that not just Chris Sale's injury. I don't think Chris Sale's injury alone should have impacted their decision on how to approach the trade deadline, but it's clear that there's something very, very wrong with this team. And I do think there needs to be some sort of urgency to win, not this year, but in 2023. And I think the Red Sox are set up for the future, but you're not going to be set up well for the future if you keep using your future guys way too soon, like the Brian Bales, like the Jeter Downs. And again, I understand they're kind of backs up against the wall, but you look at this roster, and I would have loved Kike Hernandez as a trade chip. But like you said, between his injury going on the 60-day IL and not knowing what he's going to be, and he's struggled all season, he has no trade value. Maybe they'll still try to unload him, who knows? But I think you have to kind of look at the future of this team and wonder, what do we do to make this team better for 2023, make them competitive for 2023? Of course, there's tons and tons of eyes on Xander Bogaerts, because now that the team has just been not very good the last few days, last few weeks, or really the month of July, it makes you wonder, should the Red Sox maybe consider trading Bogaerts in order to not lose him if he does opt out, which we know he's going to opt out at the end of the season. If he opts out of his contract and signs elsewhere, do you explore the idea of trading Bogaerts?
I don't want to, but I think you would get great value for him. I mean, in my opinion, he's the best. He's top 3, top 2 best shortstops in the league. I mean, just statistically, I mean, he's a guy who's been in the All-Star game time and time again. And if you feel like it's a Mookie Betts situation where you've done all you can to try and re-sign him, and you feel like the number's way too high if you want to keep Devers too, I think you got to do it. But it's just it's unfortunate with how things have continued to go, honestly, since 2013. 2018 was a great season, but if you think about it, this reminds me a lot of 2014 when the Red Sox had to unload John Lackey and John Lester. This reminds me a lot of 2019, right after a World Series win, when this team just looked deflated. I mean, we just can't keep on going through this cycle. And with Chaim Bloom talking about consistency and consistently winning, and just sold me on this idea that the team was going to turn into essentially the Dodgers but like, obviously it's going to take time. But when you come 2 wins away from a World Series and you're on the verge of being under 500, close to the trade deadline, like that's somewhere close to consistency. It reminds me of the same stuff that we've seen time and time again after the Red Sox have success one season. And so I'm just really getting sick of these 1 to 2 year windows, and right after the team's good and you're high on them, it just goes straight down.
Yeah, and I think I feel like the Red Sox have to hear offers for everyone on this team. I think they'd be silly not to just listen. You can hang up if you don't like the offer, or if you're just like, no, but I'll listen to you anyway. And I think the biggest decision that the Red Sox have is Bogaerts, because you still have Devers under contract through next season. So even though you do want to get him locked up, you have your priority should be Bogaerts. And if he's part of the future of this team, you go to him, you say, we're selling at the deadline. We want you to be the person we build around, because everyone has said this is a guy you build around. David Ortiz has said it. Dustin Pedroia has said it. These are people who are very, very good baseball players. David Ortiz, first ballot Hall of Famer, was enshrined in the Baseball Hall of Fame today. And people don't just say these things about every single player. So I think their priority needs to be Bogaerts. Like I said, go to him, say, we will match whatever anyone gives you in the offseason, or let's work out, some sort of deal to get you locked up, and we will build a competitive team around you. We will keep Devers, and we will figure out how to win, or at least be more competitive in 2023. Because I think if you lose Bogaerts, obviously then you just kind of basically lose the season. But if you lose Bogaerts, you're going to have a lot of angry fans. You mentioned John Lester. You didn't need to lose John Lester. You didn't need to lose Mookie Betts. And it's not just those two. We can keep going back to the 90s, the times that the Red Sox have let some homegrown talent, some fan favorite talent just leave because they didn't want to match the money. They didn't insert excuse here. I don't think they can let that happen with Bogaerts.
No, I don't think so whatsoever either. And I think JD could get you a lot as well. You know, there's going to be
Yeah.
contending teams that are going to want a DH, and he can also play the outfield a little bit too. But at the same time, I feel like they got to I feel like they got to go at it as you know, sell some pieces. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't mind if you went out and got a David Bednar from the Pirates to fill in that closing role. I wouldn't mind if you filled some pieces here and there with some controllable guys that you could see helping you in 2023. But at the same time, and we said it really even before the season started, there's just so many questions in 2023. And I think those questions are going to be answered at the trade deadline in a few weeks.
Yeah, and it's getting closer. Jake and I will keep you updated on the rumors, the news. We will react to hopefully some good news that the Red Sox do at this trade deadline on August 2nd. But thank you for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Check us out on YouTube, rate, review, and subscribe. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast is where you can find us. Find us also on Twitter at LO_Red Sox, Jake at Jake Iggy, me, Lauren, 3 laws, Lauren with 4 R's. And make sure to check out the other Locked On shows across the network. Everyone else in the AL East is having a wonderful time. Their teams are winning. Their teams are playing competitive baseball. Locked On O's, Locked On Yankees, Locked On Blue Jays, Locked On Rays. They're all doing a wonderful job bringing you baseball content Monday through Friday. Now that you've made Locked On Red Sox your first listen, make your second listen Locked On MLB. Expert Paul Francis Sullivan, just call him Sully, brings you humor, passion, unique perspectives on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to check back later this week. Hopefully, we can recap some wins for you. We also will be having an episode drop later on Monday, recapping David Ortiz's Hall of Fame induction, his speech, his talking points from it. A wonderful day in Red Sox Nation, even though it was not the best weekend. But anything with David Ortiz makes it a good day. We will see you Tuesday. And as always, please, for the love of God, let's go Red Sox.